fresh limit is given, per se that account is not an NPA. Per se, unless it's by the same borrower. Same borrower means it's very clear. If one account is NPA, all account in NPA. So I don't need to even get into that. But suppose a credit has come in because of another credit facility given to a sister concern, and that sister concern account is a normal account whether this money comes or not. So this is just a money which has come in and which has been moved, then that sister concern account need not be classified. Only this account here which was rescued as a result of this credit, only that account has to be classified. Yes, so thank you very much. I'll close with this. It's been a wonderful opportunity. I thank you all for a very, very patient hearing, and thank you.
You would all agree with me that Vivek has brought a lot of his practical experiences with a lot of real hands-on examples which he has done in the past many years as a branch auditor of major branches and also as a central statutory auditor as a partner of Verma and Verma. I fully agree with the friend who said that the presentation was very informative for every one of us. Now, a few things we were talking about the restructuring and the greening. I recall what Mr. Murali said in the morning. In the last few years, if you see some of the banks and branches, the number of restructuring proposals substantially outnumber the fresh loan proposals, where we have to be extremely careful, greening and all that happens. So that is something which we have to, take care of, and not strictly going by the norms. We have to be very objective in deciding on that, applying judgment, as Vivek rightly said. And I'm also hoping that the recent changes which has been brought in SA 700 dealing with auditor's report, which is there in the latest journal, would be taken notice of while we decide this. And also I would like to, since he said something which has to be qualified and highlighted, brought to the attention of not only the management, the users of financial information, I think one should take sight of SA 706 as well. Emphasis of matter paragraph. I distinctly remember in Federal Bank, his own firm had done a major emphasis of matter paragraph included in the final statutory audit report of the Federal Bank Limited. So that is something which we need to take care of. One thing, of course, the speaker, the non-corporate borrowers, working capital limits, many of us take that prepared from the books of accounts stuff as the audited accounts. That should not be done. As we have so many members, I'm taking one extra minute. I would like you to look at SRS 4410, if I remember the number correctly, engagements to compile financial information, wherein the practice of signing balance sheets as prepared from the books of accounts and on the basis of information given to us is gone. It is absolutely not allowed now. There are only two ways of signing a balance sheet. If we are doing an audit, sign it as per our report of event date attached, or as per our separate report. The only other way to sign a balance sheet is refer compilation report. Compilation is what we do in SRS 4410 or SRS 4400. Please check the number, I'm not too sure. So this is something which we should all carefully do. We see a lot of balance sheets when we go to the bank, chartered accountant signing as subject to audit, provisional. We're not supposed to do that. If it is subject to audit, it's only the management you should sign. And the compilation report is captioned as not even as auditor's report, accountant's report on unaudited financial information. And that will not suffice for reporting on LFIR, because RBI says that non-corporate borrowers with working capital limits exceeding 25 lakhs, 25 has it been raised? 25 lakhs has to give audited accounts annually. Otherwise, it will become an adverse feature in documentation. One has to take care of that. Two more things, that is general information, that I'm sure you are aware that the tax audit limit has been raised from 45 to 60 in the ensuing financial year. And one more section has been notified under the Companies Act 2013. Section 135, Schedule 7, which is dealing with activities which are eligible for CSR, and the allied rules have also been notified, which means that all the companies which fall into that category, 500 crore net worth, 1,000 crore turnover, and profit 5 crores. That's a third point which would make some of our clients, responsible for start spending CSR from 1st April 2014. 135 and Schedule 7. Schedule 7 has also substantial changes have been made in Schedule 7. One may take note of that, though it is not strictly relating to bank audit. Since I am seeing a large number of members, I thought I'll share this with you. Once again, thanking Vivek on behalf of the chairman who had to leave, and most of the committee members had to leave. They have program in Pondicherry. So you'll have to bear with me for one more session sitting here as moderator. Mr. Swaminathan is already there. Thanking Vivek on behalf of the SIRC chairman, Rajarajashan, entire SIRC, and on behalf of all the members sitting here, I thank Vivek for that wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. And I would request a senior member, Mr. V. Chandrasekharan, to give a memento to the young and dynamic speaker. With your permission, now I would invite Ms. Swaminathan to the dais, please. So prudence is one of the very important considerations in accounting and auditing. And in very simple terms, prudence is defined as the measure of caution we bring into the preparation of financial information. And as auditors, we are trained to be very, very prudent. We are trained to provide for the smell of a loss and also not to recognize income and revenue unless that it is sure that it has been earned and there are no uncertainties about its ultimate collection. The whole concept of prudential norms started in 1992 when the Reserve Bank of India quite belatedly, looking across the world, found that the Indian financial reporting system in the banking sector is not at par with the international standards. And a few years later, now we are so many years down, the Indian banking system as a robust system has withstood many of the setbacks, slowdowns and turmoils, recessions, when including banks which were so very famous, particularly in the US, they collapsed like a pack of cards. Most of the Indian banks, though they were affected by a large, huge incidence of NPAs, withstood this and they continue to function, and today we have bankers very confidently talking about something like 5 to 6% of NPAs in that. It was from these prudential norms that the whole concept of NPAs emerged. So when they started saying that interest on NPA should be recognized only when they are realized, to put it very briefly, a big question came up. We are trained, and internationally we say that accrual is a basic accounting assumption. Are we not defeating accrual when we say that interest would be accounted only when it is received and not when it is accrued? And interest is a function of time, we all of us know. And that's the time when we had a program in Cochin, an All Kerala program. Our past president, N.P. Sarda, very, very emphatically said, accrual is fine, but what is most important and paramount is true and fair. If you are accounting income on assets, the principle of which itself is doubtful of recovery, it doesn't show a true and fair view. So that is where the whole concept of NPAs came, and then we have the IRAC norms in place. I'm sure that the next session would give us the best possible insights on this area of income recognition and classification, but we understand that there has not been very major changes this year in the master circular which RBI came out with. With that, let me move on to formally introducing the speaker, S. Swaminathan. He is BCom, an associate member of the ICAI and a fellow member from 1990. He is also a grad CWA qualified in 1984. He is practicing as a partner of Mrs. Ganesh & Company Chartered Accountants since 1986, a firm with 10 partners. He has got very wide exposure in the audit of public sector undertakings, in central statutory audit capacity, 5 nationalized banks, many concurrent and inspection audits, audit of non-profit organizations, internal audits, installation of costing system as a cost expert, cost accountant, management consultancy services, system manuals, central statutory and concurrent audit of banks, and also an expert on company law compliance and related formalities, represents before the RD and the company law board. And other activities include being the faculty at many of the prestigious schools and colleges in and around Pondicherry. He has presented a large number of papers, hundreds of them, on a variety of topics ranging from internal audit to company law to accounting standards, a few to mention. And is a director in the board of Andhra Bank for a 3-year term since he has served 3 years as a board of the Andhra Bank, on the board of Andhra Bank, and was chairman of the audit committee since 2004, and has served there in many capacities. And he has also been very, very committed to the Institute, serving as the chairman of the Pondicherry branch of SIRC in the year 2008-9. And he is also acting as independent director of GVPR Engineers Limited, Hyderabad, since 2008. With these words, let me formally introduce and welcome Mr. S. Swaminathan, the speaker for the 4th technical session. It's over to you, sir, now. Please take it.
The chairman of the session, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. At the outset, I must thank the SARC for having given me this opportunity to talk about prudential norms on income recognition, asset classification, on provisioning. We all know the advent of prudential norms took place somewhere in 1993 when the circular came in 1992. In a central statutory audit, before, late 80s, up to late 80s, the provision for bad debts or advances will be made in a manner which was totally ad hoc. The auditors, each of the central statutory auditors used to go with the provisions for each of the zones they have audited. The chairman will give a talk and say, you have got to stitch a garment, but the cloth available to me only is limited. So we will have to stitch the garment according to the size of the cloth. So the total provision required will be around 80-85 crore. The chairman will say it is only up to 25 or 24 we can provide for. And this 25 crore will be spread over all the bad advances, proportionately, pro rata. So this is what was being done with the knowledge of the Director of RBI, the Secretary from the Finance and Banking Ministry. This was going through. Then came the prudential norms to have more transparency. And consistency to be reflected in the accounts based on the recovery rather than on the subjective considerations. And we all know how it developed from past due concept, all these things. Now we have got a master circular, the latest being July 1st, 2013. So this is the way this was introduced, and we have been going strong based on the realizable value of the securities, as well as record of recovery. They are the prime aspects. But as my predecessor speakers told us, the norms are important, no doubt, but the auditor in any branch, audit of any advances has to go through the relevant file to seek the qualitative factors. Without going into the account, only going by the norms or only going by the operation of the account, one cannot decide on the health of the account. There are so many factors which are operating apart from the accounts operation, and those factors have got to be blended to arrive at the correct NPAs. Now my next slide is on non-performing assets. What are all the non-performing assets and how it is to be classified. When it is becoming non-performing, like overdue, interest under principal or installment of principal becoming overdue in the case of term loan, and in the case of bills it is over 90 days, overdue for 90 days, bills purchased and discounted. Of course, I am not going to touch upon the derivative and securitization because it's a separate chapter by itself, which will be dealt at the head office, not at the branch level. As far as crops are concerned, agricultural loans, It is a short duration and long duration. There will be two classification depending upon the harvesting season, which will be decided by state level banking committee, SLBC, which is the short run crop and which is the long run crop. So in each branch, when we go for the audit, we will ask for that particular area wherein the SLBC is there for each area or each district, as you can call it. They will decide what are all short run crop and what are all long duration crops. So depending upon that only, we will have to classify and provide for it. Then as far as out of order account is concerned, there are three alternatives which we all know, which we are very familiar with. Then what is overdue? If it is not paid on the due date, it becomes overdue. Then another very important aspect is interest due and charge during any quarter is not serviced fully within 90 days from the end of the quarter. That's very important. So the next quarter, if it is not serviced in the next quarter, then it becomes an NPA as far as interest is concerned. It's very clearly given in the master circular. As was told, this is purely on interest on cash basis to determine the NPAs, and the exceptions are these national saving certificates, then KVP, then Indra Vikas Patra, LIPs. Where adequate margin is available, this is exempted. Where margin is not available, then you will have to make good the shortfall by making adequate provision. Now I am coming to the very important aspect, namely interest realization. As was told by my predecessor speaker, you will have to see the source of funds from which the interest is made good. It is not out of additional credit facilities. Or you should find out what is the source of fund, where from it gets transferred. Within the branch, it is very easy to find out. If it is from some other branch or some other bank, then it is difficult to establish. Because the branch may not cooperate with you to get the relevant information or more information. But if it is within the branch, it is our paramount duty to find out what is the source, and if it is not convincing for you, we will have to classify it as NPA if it is overdue. Then comes the appropriation of recoveries. If the borrower says this is towards principal or this is towards interest, whatever he is repaying, then it should be appropriated accordingly. But in the absence of any agreement between the bank and the customer, then it is the bank policy that will prevail. But the RBI has been very categorical in saying that it should be uniform and consistent. You cannot go on changing the policy. Whatever is recovered first towards principal, then towards interest, if once the bank has decided, it has got to follow it consistently. It cannot go on changing once in 2 years or once in 3 years. And it should be uniformly followed for all accounts. You cannot be selective also. So this is very important, appropriation of recovery. Some banks take it to principal, some banks take it to interest. Not all banks will follow the same rule because it is left to the discretion of the bank as the board will decide. Now let me come to provisioning. So this is also very, very familiar subject for all of us. Substandard, standard, doubtful, loss assets. One in the case of restructured advances, which I'll deal with it later in detail, where we will differ. On standard accounts, we'll have provisions, depending upon the nature of asset, and at the branch level, one should be careful to classify the standard assets in the particular basket. That is, the returns will reflect what is the nature of the standard assets. Like it says agriculture and SME, then commercial real estate, because each one will have different provisions. So the returns will be separate. So we will have to verify that and then ensure that it falls in the appropriate category. As far as substandard assets is concerned, one has to take into account this unsecured portion. So we will have to make additional provision of 15%, thereby making it into 25%. But in the case of infrastructure loans, it will be restricted to 20% if there is an escrow facility. Now this classification is purely technologically driven. But how far we are going to rely upon the technology is a big question mark. In my opinion, all banks have got to settle down in this issue. As I told you initially, or as in the morning, our speaker who spoke, Mr. Moni, spoke on this issue also, we cannot rely upon the system, in my opinion. This is one of the reasons for the downfall of this United Bank in the recent. In my experience, the small loans I mean to say, the housing, education loans, personal loans, consumer loans, all these loans have been given a go-by during this classification of assets or NPAs. Many of us do not verify them, either due to shortage of time or paucity of time, or we don't find the material. But imagine, small drops make an ocean. So in each branch, some 20 lakhs or 30 lakhs is left out. Then if you add up for 1,800 branches or 3,300 branches, imagine what will be the amount. In our last audit, in one of the branches, 1.25 crore was left out from the housing loan. And again, 0.95 crore was left out in education loan. So we had to identify and tell them this is NPA. We have to reclassify them. So this is one instance you have to be very careful, wherein you cannot rely upon 100% on technology. Pardon? They have not done it. See, one thing we should know is that the master data they feed in is not correct. They don't do the cleaning up. Data cleaning, they never do it. They talk about it. Even at the head office level, they say, yeah, we will do data cleaning. But we do not have the time to verify the master data, whether it has been correctly entered from the sanction letters, in respect of each of the loans. Maybe large loans, we will definitely verify that, no doubt. But small loans, we don't have the time. Similarly, the bank also does not do a neat job on that issue. So if they feed it wrongly, definitely the system will act according to the data fed in. No doubt, the central statutory auditors will report to the board, saying that data cleaning has got to be done. They'll also acknowledge it. But in practice, how much is done is a big question. In fact, the inspection department or the concurrent auditors also don't do it 100%. If that is done, then this sort of education loans and housing loans cannot escape from NPA. Not this much at least. The another aspect is that when we look into the these loan accounts, we'll definitely have the sanction letter and the file with us. So we know the health of the account by going through the file also. Sometimes the file will reflect more information than the account. So this is not being done by the branch. This exercise is left out. As a result, you will find lot of such NPAs in the branch level. In agricultural loan, this was revealed, agricultural loan, when I come to there, when relief was given, agricultural level, ARDRS was given, audit was carried out on selected